All right, so I have now just 1 after 6, so we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like the number of participants has tapered off a bit. First of all, good evening. Thank you all for tuning in tonight to the second installment of our webinar series, Let's Get Camping, Planning for Summer 2021. And tonight we are going to be talking about summer camp options specifically for Cub Scouts. So we have a couple of panelists on board. I do want to let everyone know that this is in fact being recorded and will be posted to our website after we're done here. So you'll be able to view that at your leisure, as well as you do have the option to post questions in the Q&A box. So please, as we go forward, do so, and our panelists will do their best to answer those as you post them in there, and then we'll have an overall Q&A session at the end. First of all, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Phil Barbash. I am the Director of Camping for the National Capital Area Council. I do want to go ahead and introduce each of the panelists that we have with us tonight. So we will start. You don't have to turn on your camera, Sarah, because you'll be in the background, but we'll start with Miss Sarah Moses.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm the camping specialist, and I'll be back here answering questions and doing general tech stuff.
Sarah's our IT master, so just in case my Wi-Fi decides that it doesn't want to work anymore, Sarah will take over from there. We'll move over to let's go with Sam Mcgrath.
Hi everybody, I'm Sam Mcgrath. I'm the council staff advisor for Cub Scout day camps. So any questions you have about day camp, I will be monitoring the chat to get you those answers.
All right, good deal. Thank you for joining us, Sam. Let's go over to Mr. Kevin Rock.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Rock, and I'm the summer camp director for Camp William B. Snyder in Haymarket. So any questions about Camp Snyder? I'm your guy.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. And we will move over to Michael Komanczyk.
Good evening, everyone. As Phil said, my name is Michael Komanczyk. I am the camp director of Camp PMI, one of the 2 Cub Scout camps down at Goshen. So I'll be monitoring the chat for any PMI Goshen questions.
All right, and last but not least, finally, Mr. Richard Holtzlander.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Richard Holtzlander, and I am the camp director over at Camp Ross. And so if you have any questions about Camp Ross, I will be happy to answer them.
All righty, thank you very much. One final announcement before we get started. I do apologize. We ended up having to postpone the webinar from last week. Just a lot of details came out kind of at the last second, and we'll touch on a few of them here tonight. Not going to spend a ton of time on COVID here tonight because we touched on it a couple weeks ago, but we did postpone that Scouts BSA webinar to April 1. April 1, same time, same place. So please tune in as we're kind of getting things together and making sure that we're in total compliance with that government directive. We'll be announcing some changes and some things moving forward to be aware of for Scouts BSA programming. So a good portion of you, I think, are mostly Cub Scouts types of people, so you might not really care to tune in, which is totally fine. But if you do, that will be April 1, 6 p.m. right here to talk about Scouts BSA programming at summer camp. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, just our general overall offerings for Cubs. We'll start with your local district day camp, and Sam Mcgrath, of course, is in the background to answer questions on that. But this is very much, we bring the program to you. So if you're if you have youth that are, some of those younger Cubs who are ready for some sort of day camp experience, but might not be ready for the full adventure in the middle of Nowhereville, we're putting this right into your backyard. Okay, so each of your districts has one or either combines with another district that has one. And generally they're not going to be too long of a drive. You're talking about maybe a 20-minute drop off and 20-minute pickup drive type situation. So that's definitely an option, as well as our summer resident weekend programs at Snyder. We also have day camp at Snyder, but that's gonna generally be for some of those districts that are more local to Snyder. It's gonna be run similar to your local district day camps. But on top of that, we do have resident weekend programs at Snyder. So you come in on a Friday, leave on a Sunday. Again, maybe your cub isn't ready for that full week-long experience, but maybe just a nice short couple overnight experience to kind of get their feet wet on all of that. So those are going to be June 25th through 27th, July 9th through 11th, and July 16th through 18th. And I probably should have specified the dates on the local district day camps. They're kind of all over the place. So I'll give you the resources at the end here to kind of look them up on your own, or you can look it up right now. Go to daycamp.org, go to snyder.org. Okay. Finally, we have our Weeblos camps down at Goshen. We start on the 27th of June and run through the 3rd of July, and that's one session. They're a 6-night program. And then we run 4 additional sessions after that. So 5 weeks total of Weeblos camps. And we also have 2 different camps, as you saw, Michael and Richard from those 2 different camps, Ross and PMI. Okay, so we got 2 camps, both running 5 weeks, all the way through until the end of July. So that is an option for Weeblos if you are ready for that full experience of summer camp. And also we focus a lot of that program on getting those weebs ready for the next level, getting them prepared for Scouts BSA and to bridge into a troop. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. So who goes where? A lot of people say, all right, that's great information. That was, that was a mouthful, but where I have this youth and this youth is this age, where do I send my youth? Okay. So District Day Camp is for any rising tigers through rising Weeblos. The terminology is particularly important here because we are in all of the levels of Cub Scouts are based on your grade level. And because we're in the summer, we're in between grade levels. So I want to really stress the term rising tigers and rising Weeblos. So that would be rising 1st graders or rising 5th graders, okay? Any of those age groups can be eligible, can and are eligible for a district day camp, okay? A lot of times you're gonna go at that tiger age level, wolf. By the time, if you've been to day camp 3 or 4 times over the years, you might be ready, a lot of your youth might be ready for the next step, or they might wanna stay with that district day camp. All depends, whatever is right for you. Snyder. Again, I want to touch on the terminology rising tigers through rising Weeblos for day camp or resident weekends. So a lot of you are sitting at home wondering, okay, a rising 1st grader can already go to an overnight summer camp? Yes, that is correct. And that is directly out of our Guide to Safe Scouting as well. Okay. Goshen, rising 1st and 2nd year Weeblos only. We get a lot of questions about this one. Okay, well, what about my tiger? What about my wolf? Okay, can they come to camp? They unfortunately can't. They are too young for that experience, or what we have deemed as who is eligible to come to that summer camp. They're just simply not eligible for that program. I think occasionally and very rarely, I put this in here, Scouts BSA youth, so that would be a rising 6th grader, can come to Weeblos camp. Generally, they are going to be bridging into a troop at that point. So they are not necessarily going to want to come to Weeblos camp, but we do have the ability for them to do that. They would register online as a youth, obviously, but they would act in sort of an adult capacity while they're at summer camp. Okay, and that position is called a den chief typically. All right, and then finally, and this is the kicker, if you will. Unfortunately, we don't have spots for rising lions. So if you're about to be a lion going into that kindergarten age level, we simply don't have the ability to provide you a program at summer camp. And that's also BSA national policy. Okay. Ooh. COVID considerations. I'm going to harp on this a million times over. I might touch on it again, depending on what our questions are, so on and so forth. I beg of you, if you are sick, do not come to camp, please. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on COVID. We spent a lot of time on that a couple of weeks ago. But if you're sick, don't come to camp. You're putting yourself at risk, and you could be putting a lot of other people at risk. I know that sounds kind of silly because I'm talking to a lot of adults out there right now, but this applies to your youth as well. If you believe that they're sick, they're showing symptoms, please, and I know that's a tough decision. Well, this is the only week of summer camp. I love summer camp. I love summer camp too. please, if they are sick, they can't come. That goes for day programs, it goes for resident programs, it goes for all of our programs. Please stay at home if you're sick. Cohorts. I think a lot of you probably saw, you might have been part of our webinar where we discussed this before. The governor's order did stipulate that we do have to use cohorts. We are not quite as concerned about this at the Cub level, since this is already pretty standard to the programs that we run a lot of the time. So if you're with a den or a pack, you're going to move from station to station as a group anyway. We're certainly going to have some back-end systems in place to make sure that that's well organized and that we don't have, you know, people moving around the place. But we're gonna keep you together, and we're gonna keep you as one cohort, and you're gonna move with your cohort. So you're not gonna do a ton of interacting with other people while you're at summer camp. Okay, the other people outside of your cohort, that is. Excuse me. All right, vaccines. I know I've been getting a lot of questions about vaccines. They are certainly highly encouraged for adults coming to camp. And you know, I say adults, they're highly encouraged for anybody who is able and eligible to get a vaccine. But we're not going to have them required. But we are certainly going to highly encourage anyone who's able to out there, when it's your turn to get vaccinated, please do go and get vaccinated. And please do that if you are able to before you come to summer camp. Highly encouraged. Okay, and we'll continue to monitor that situation and update you on changes there. And then this kind of goes back to the first point that I was making. Campers will likely be sent home if they're exhibiting symptoms. And I think that that's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to the length of a lot of our programs. They're generally going to be shorter programs. So if you start exhibiting symptoms, we're going to quarantine you for a little bit and monitor you, but it's going to be a pretty short quarantine. So if you're still exhibiting those symptoms, we're probably just going to send you home at that point, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm going to go into a couple of just the general program offerings that we have and how these camps work in themselves. And then obviously, please continue to put questions in the Q&A, and we'll take them at the end as well. But just the day camp program in general, the theme this year is weird science. I'm sure if you have questions on that, Sam will be happy to speak to some of those. But we also have, each one of them is going to have BBs, archery, field games, scout skills, and ecology. Again, sticking to that cohort model, you move through those stations with your cohort. And each of those is going to have some sort of advancement opportunity where they're going to tell you kind of what requirements were covered at each of those stations. That's an option as well. Okay. Snyder program. Oh, there we go. One of these days it's going to work. There we go. All right. So the theme there, outer space. It's going to be all very space themed. In fact, we're in the process of renaming all of our activity stations that you see there below. We are going to have at the resident programs, we have an opening and a closing campfire. So opening campfire on Friday night, closing campfire on Sunday. Again, those are going to look a little bit different this year because of COVID, but hopefully not too different.
Sorry, yep. Closing campfires are Saturday night.
Excuse me. Sorry, Saturday night. Thank you, Kevin. That's why I have you all here. And then each of the areas listed below, we've got the pool or the lake. Pool for swimming, lake for boating. It's a smaller lake, but a lake nonetheless. And then the BB range, archery, and the handicraft stations. And then new this year is we're going to be utilizing the wood shop out at Camp Snyder. I know some of you have probably been there to do some sort of Cub level Pinewood Derby type activities and stuff, but that's going to be another station that we put in as part of the Cub program out at Snyder this year. Okay. Goshen. So our theme at Goshen for the 2 Weeblos camps is Magic Olympics. And if you're sitting there scratching your head wondering what in the world does that mean, we were 2 at one point, and we sat down and we half of us were on one side of the argument and the other half were on the other side of the argument. Some of us wanted magic and some of us wanted Olympics. So we decided it's going to be Magic Olympics. And now we've got a theme for this summer. So not sure yet exactly how that'll look, but I think it's going to be exciting. Same kind of deal here. We're going to have an opening campfire at the beginning of a week. These are 6-day sessions now when we're talking about Goshen. So you're talking about an opening campfire on a Sunday night and then a closing campfire on Friday night. And then a similar concept here. So you've got the program areas, you've got a full waterfront that's on a huge 400-acre lake. So you can do swimming, canoeing, kayaking, so on and so forth. Probably not as much of those. They're still a little bit young at the Weeblos level. So we have these things called canoes, which are, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together on that one. We also have BBs, archery, college and scout skills, handicraft, and then each of those 2 Weeblos camps has what we refer to as a Weeb 2 program or an Arrow of Light program. So that's a program specifically designed for youth that are that age that kind of gets them ready for that next level in Scouts BSA, and they do kind of an overnighter and a couple of other things where they learn about some of those skills. So really cool stuff going on. All right, so frequently asked questions. First of all, this is probably our most frequently asked question that we get anywhere, anytime, all the time. You've got 2 different Weeblos camps at Goshen. What is the difference between those 2 Weeblos camps? The answer to that is fairly simple. There's not a whole lot of difference. The programs are almost identical and they operate under the same theme, but they are going to have a different culture and a different feel there. Each of them has a full staff of their own, and as you can see, 2 different directors, as well as the fact that they're in 2 fairly different locations that are spread out around that big lake I told you about at Goshen. So there's going to be a different feel to them. If you go to Ross, it's a little bit more open, more spread out. It's slightly hilly, but you have a little bit more flat area there. You kind of get a big field. Right when you come in, there's a big field there, and you can do some field games and so on and so forth. You go to PMI, it seems to always feel like you're walking uphill wherever you are there, a lot more hilly, very rustic, and a lot more tree cover. So you're more in the woods versus in the sun. So really depends on kind of which feel, layout, culture you associate with. On top of the fact that a lot of packs are very well associated with one of the 2 camps. So I'm sure you'll hear about that. Which kind of camp is the better fit for my youth? So I know I listed a couple of options out there as far as camps that cater to multiple camps that cater to multiple age groups. So for example, if I am a rising wolf, I have the option to go to my district day camp, or I have the option to go to day camp at Snyder, or I have the option to go to a resident weekend program at Snyder. So a lot of people say, well, which one should I pick? I typically kind of turn this question back on whoever's asking it and say, well, which one of those things do you think sounds more appealing to you as an adult and the youth in your pack or the youth in your family? So for example, a lot of people are going to look at all of these offerings and say, I don't think I can commit to much more than getting my youth to a local district day camp 5 times over the course of a week. I'm balancing a lot of things here, and my youth is younger, so on and so forth. That is totally fine. So maybe a district day camp is the better fit for you. Some people are going to say right away, no, I want my youth to get the full camping experience, be out there overnight in a tent, so on and so forth, right away at that bear age level or at the tiger age level. If that's the case, then maybe a resident weekend program at Snyder is a good fit for you. And when they get to be Weeblos, again, they can still go as Weeblos to a district day camp or to a resident weekend at Snyder or to a day camp week at Snyder. They can still do all of those things. They do not have to go to Goshen at that point. But a lot of times the youth are kind of itching at that point for the full week-long experience in the woods. So that's generally what kind of prompts people to say, okay, well, it's time to give them that experience. So it is completely whatever is the best fit for the youth that we're serving. What's the adult requirement? I get this one a lot. You know, I am an adult, I'm signing up my pack, or I'm signing up my den, you know, I need to come to summer camp. How is this going to work? A lot of times, and I know that Sam will probably echo this, but I think the districts are typically looking for help from the volunteer side to run a lot of these district day camps. So certainly if you're able to give us the whole week and volunteer, that's great. If you're able to give us the whole week and be a what's called a den walker, which is somebody who just goes station to station with the group of kids from that pack, that's fantastic as well. If you are one of those people and you're like, well, I'm not, you know, I don't know how to run archery, but I'm absolutely willing to help out. You know, maybe den walker is the best choice for you. But maybe you're someone that, you know, can only do a couple of days or can only do, you know, 1 or 2 nights at Goshen. Obviously still a possibility there. We have a lot of adults that will come and go at our camps down at Goshen. So there's I guess what I'm getting to is there's tons of places to fit in as far as adults that want to help out at summer camp. You are going to have, the older that your youth get, the less hands-on you're going to have to be as an adult at summer camp. So I think at some point, you know, you have the adults that were like, well, I was basically the archery director for my day camp years ago. As we get into those higher levels, when you're at Snyder and when you get to Goshen, Snyder and Goshen have their own full staffs there that supervise the program and supervise the dining hall and so on and so forth. So I think it is important to note that as we get to those higher levels, you are not going to have as much hands-on with the actual program or running itself. You are still going to be responsible for getting the kids in your pack to each of those stations, or to the dining hall at Snyder, or to the dining hall at Goshen, but you're not going to have to do as much supervision of them while you're there as you would maybe at a day camp level. Okay, so slightly larger role at a younger age, and then as they get older, slightly smaller role. What are the fees associated with each type of camp? Again, I direct you to go to daycamp.org, go to goshen.org, go to snyder.org, and that'll give you a big fee breakdown. And honestly, there's all kinds of different moving targets as it relates to fees. But I do want to emphasize that Goshen is $400 for a youth at the earliest amount. Snyder is $200 for a youth for a resident weekend, or $230 for a day camp program. And then your district day camps are generally going to be $190 at the earliest amount, unless it's a twilight camp, in which it's going to be about $90. Okay, so a lot, again, like that, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a lot of different moving targets with fees and different discounts you can get and how all of that works. But that's kind of the very, very surface area to give you a feel of how these work. Obviously, you probably noticed that Goshen and Snyder are a little bit more expensive. We do own those properties. They do have a little bit more elaborate programs, the pool, so on and so forth. And they also provide you food service during those programs I talked about. So that's obviously going to jack up the cost a little bit. Okay. All right, resources. I want to highlight these, and this is what I said I would talk about at the beginning here. District day camps, again, go to daycamp.org. Snyder summer camp, you see that there. That's going to give you anything you want to know about those resident weekends or day camp programs. Goshen Webelos camps, there's a separate one for PMI, separate one for Ross. You go to those pages and you scroll down a little bit, you'll find the info for Michael and Richard respectively. And then also the CDC summer camp guidance. It's still a little, it's still there. It's a bit out of date, some of it, but it is still there. And it is part of what we based our protocols on, as well as our local Virginia guidance. Okay. All right. I am done talking now, so no round of applause for that, please. But I am going to go ahead and open the floor for questions and answers. And for you panelists that are here, this is a heads up that I may need some help with some of the questions that we get as far as answering them. So I am going to turn the MC spot over to Miss Sarah Moses to throw some soft and hard balls at me.
All right, for our first question, can you speak a little bit about tenting accommodations and what accommodations are like at both Goshen and at Snyder?
Yes, that is a great question. So at Goshen, we do a two-man canvas tent, two-man, two-female canvas tent. It's got a wooden platform at the bottom, and it's similar to something you'd see in the military. The platform itself, I believe, is 7 feet by 9 feet. So you can kind of picture that in your head, and we put 2 cots in each of those tents. A common question that people have asked with COVID is, are we going to have to share a tent with someone? The answer that I've given is that we simply do not own, between Goshen or Snyder, we do not own enough tents to have every single person that comes to summer camp have their own tent. But we are completely okay with you bringing your own tent to camp if you are confident that you are going to want to have your own tent, or that your youth is going to want to have their own tent. So we are totally okay with that at both of our camps. I know that the ones, Kevin, do you know, I know that the ones at Snyder are a bit larger than the ones at Goshen generally.
I don't know the physical measurements, but the tents, you can put 2 cots on each side. So it's a larger 4-cot tent.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, next question. We had a question about adult ratios at the various camps.
Yeah, so another very good question. We go based on what the Guide to Safe Scouting answer to that is, which is 1 to 4. Okay, so 1 adult for every 4 youth. I know that that's for our Weeblos camps, but there's going to be general recommendations on top of that. And I think most packs that have been to Goshen, at least, would say that that might not be enough. Any of the panelists out there want to jump in and say, give us your opinions on that?
There was a similar question in the section as well, saying the minimum leadership requirements for any Cub Scout unit attending a camp. They're quoting the Snyder Parents and Leaders Guide. The ratio of 2 adults for up to 10 youth. How does that work with only 1 or 2 scouts from a pack participating? Would 2 adults from the pack be required to participate every day? One of the reasons why we need multiple adults every day is because it also falls into the category of youth protection guidelines. So you need that extra adult in case something happens. You need that rule of 3. And it's something that's constantly on our minds as a staff on Snyder of youth protection, because we have a lot of training in that during staff week before camp opens. Because we know a lot of campers that come to Snyder are very new to the scouting program and may not have had as much youth protection training as others.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the minimum amount, it's just like any scouting activity, the minimum amount of adults that you need is 2. And then there's all sorts of recommendations that come on top of that. But you start with your two trained adults. Weeblos guys or Sam, do any of you guys have anything to add on just general adult leader preferences and how many we want at summer camp?
I've seen a lot of different variations come down to camp. I've seen some packs that have the bare minimum, and I've seen some that pretty much every scout has an adult that comes. I will say typically the more adults you have, the easier it is to kind of manage your pack, getting them from program to program. But as Phil said, it's not like the adults are actually going to be running the program. The main thing that the adults are going to be doing is getting those scouts from program to program, from dining hall to back to your site, and just general safety. But I will say the more adults you have, the easier it does seem to make it.
Yeah, and we do give you 2 free adults with that registration, and then that number, and then the rest of them you do when you start bringing more and more, you do have to pay for them after that. But your first two are free. All right. I think we are good to go to that next question, Sarah.
All right, next question after adult ratios is smaller units. So say you have a unit of one child and their parent or guardian, or one of just 3 youth and their 2 adults. How does that work with the cohort model?
Let me think about this. So 1 adult, okay, 1 and 1. Ah, okay.
So smaller groups, how do they fit into, would they be paired with a larger group? How do they go around in cohorts?
Yeah, generally, I think we are going, let me start by saying that even at that 25 level, we would probably recommend that you split into, a smaller cohort, a group of 12, a group of 13, something like that. But at that really small level, if you're coming to camp 1 adult, 1 youth, or 2 adults, 2 youth, something like that, we are going to try, depending on the size of the session and how many people are signed up, we're going to try to keep those cohorts as small as possible. So it's very possible that you end up in just that cohort of that size. If not, we're probably going to group you up with a similar size cohort, and you two will form 1 cohort for that week.
All right, another cohort-based question. Are cohorts going to be, would a cohort have the same, or scouts of the same grade, scout level, rank level, or would they be mixed groups?
No, generally we're gonna try and keep the ages as close as possible. But I think the question, I mean, if the question is, will they be mixed groups? I think if you're coming with your pack and let's say you have, a few 2nd graders and a few 3rd graders, they can still be in the same cohort together as that group. But what we probably wouldn't do is, if we had to form a larger cohort with some smaller groups, we're going to very much try to avoid forming a cohort with some tigers and some weeblos, for example, because it's just, there's a significant age difference there. But yes, if you're coming with your pack and you've got a couple of each in those grades, and you are okay being together as a cohort, we would absolutely be in favor of that.
Related question specifically on the weebelows level, if you have a smaller group of about 7, and some of those are weebelows and some of them are AOLs, how would that work in program?
I'll go ahead and take this one. So they would generally be combined with each other as one larger group or as a cohort. And then for the AOL scouts, if they chose to participate in the Arrow of Light programming, then they would be pulled away from their main pack and participate in the AOL program from there.
Excellent. And then as far as Snyder goes, did you have anything to drop in there, Kevin, or are you good?
I'm good. They usually just stay together and they all participate in the same program.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of groups, how do campfires work in the age of COVID?
Yes, very good question. So what we've done essentially when we started, and again, I don't want to go too far into COVID because we'll go down that rabbit hole for a while. But when we started putting all of our protocols together as it relates to COVID, we did note that campfires are basically the biggest choke point that we have. Campfires and meals, I should say, and meals probably even more so. So what we've done is for those larger weeks, we're going to split the camp in half, and then we're going to put one half of the camp in one location for campfire at the same time, and the other half of the camp in a different location for campfire at the same time, such that we're not combining everybody. And even in those areas that we have those campfires going on, it gets very difficult when you have the 300 people there to maintain any sort of distancing. So we're going to split them in half, and then you would sit with your cohort. And then we've also made some adjustments in the way that we're going to run. So there really isn't going to be a whole lot of aerosol spread. There's not going to be as much singing. There's not going to be as much cheering. There's not going to be as much interacting with people. You're going to be sitting with your cohort, and staff is going to be pretty much running the program, 20 or 30 feet away from you. So it is going to be a new feeling and a challenging feeling, but we are still, we did discuss the potential of just not having these kinds of things, campfires, flag ceremonies, food service, etc. And we figured that was just kind of a bridge too far. Those are very important to us as part of our program, and those are the things that people remember the most about summer camp. So we are going to have them, but they are going to feel a little bit different this year. Good question.
All right, we've had a couple questions asking for more details on the Year 2 or AOL program at Ross and PMI.
So for the Year 2/AOL program at Ross, we, for either Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the week and how scheduling for the second half of the week works out, we split up the AOLs into a morning program, which runs for a 3-hour block, basically. And that program consists of more of like what is thought of, at least in my mind, as traditional scouting experience. So they go out in the woods and they learn how to make fires without any like matches, lighters, anything like that. They make teepees out of sticks and debris from leaves and trees out in the woods. And then in the evening, the same evening that they have the program, we would have the Arrow of Light Campfire, which is a specific campfire for scouts who are bridging over into the Scouts BSA program the next year. So that it's sort of like a farewell as they make their way over to some of the Scouts BSA camps.
And I will add to that very quickly. PMI currently does not have a WELO 2 Arrow of Light program. It was something that was canceled at PMI a couple of years ago, and we're in the process of bringing it back, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to bring it back in this camping season. So if that is something you're interested in, Camp Ross may be a better other option for you, but we're in the process of bringing it back.
Michael, do you still have activities for AOLs at the different program areas?
Yes, we still do have different activities at the specific program areas, but it's not a specialized AOL program that removes them from their main group like it is at Camp Ross.
And since it is separate at Camp Ross, how does that work for groups that may only have a few adults?
So the way that we organize the AOL program at Ross is the folks that are teaching it are both adults on staff. So they automatically fulfill the youth protection requirement for scouting. And then we encourage additional adults who would like to participate in the program and take pictures of their scouts to come along, just so that we can make sure that all of our youth protection requirements are cool.
All right, the next question is about scheduling for all of our different types of camps. How does the program schedule work? When do you find out about the program schedule and things of that nature?
I can start with that. For Camp PMI, we are implementing a new type of scheduling this year. So in the next couple of weeks, you should be getting an email with kind of explaining how the scheduling works. But essentially at both Camp Ross and PMI, the Monday and Tuesday schedule are set in stone. So you come to camp and do specific activities in a specific order. You go to your aquatics and you do your swim check at aquatics. And then you go to like our Scoutcraft area and work on building fires, and you rotate through all 6 of our areas on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have a chance to kind of build your own schedule and pick what programs you want. Typically, that's a thing that is done at camp. You know, you kind of put in your request sheet and then we work it out there. At Camp PMI, you're going to be doing that request sheet ahead of time. So you should be seeing an email from me in a couple of weeks with more information on that.
For Ross, it'll essentially be the same system. On Sunday, when you arrive at camp, you'll be provided with a Monday, Tuesday program schedule. On Monday night, we'll have our adult leaders meeting where we will kind of talk about all of the program offerings throughout the rest of the week. And then you'll have the opportunity to fill out your request sheet for the rest of the week over Monday night into Tuesday morning. And then you'll receive your program schedule for the rest of the week from there.
Kevin, did you want to touch on kind of how this works at Snyder?
I'm sorry, I missed the whole question. I was answering one of the questions in the panel.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's basically, how does it work as it relates to signing up for your activities at camp, or how does your kid develop, so on and so forth?
So there's no need to sign up for any activities, because depending on if you come for a day camp or you come to the resident weekend, then it's all planned out for you. I believe there is a sample schedule that's already posted on the Go to Snyder website, so you can see how it looks like in the past.
Yep.
But we have a rotational basis where, like for the resident weekend, on day one, you would have this program, then this program, then this program, and throughout the day, all the different cohorts, they hit those sessions with the program that happens. Then on day two, so it's already mapped out for you guys. We do all the work for you.
Perfect. You come there and you just get the schedule handed to you.
Yep.
All right.
How about day camp?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sam, do you want to jump in with anything on day camp?
Oh, and with our day camp, it's the same thing. It's scheduled for day 1, 2, 3, 4. And this year at Camp Snyder, we are adding a day 5. So we used to be a 4-day day camp. This year, we're extending it to a 5th. And so it's all mapped out for you. You come. And in fact, as an additional thing with both the day camps and the resident weekends, we have, let's say we have 6 different groups in our rotation. We basically give you a staff member that is your den walker who helps to get you around camp so you know where you're headed. And then they help them with the activities once they get to that specific program area.
Excellent.
No, I mean, Kevin pretty much nailed it, except for if you go to a district day camp, the district has to provide those staffs. And so if you're planning on going to another district's, just make sure that you are talking with them about making sure they've got enough staff members to accommodate the kids that you're bringing. Other than that, the programs will be more or less the same across districts. So just look for one that fits what you're looking for.
Excellent.
All right, the next question, what are the dining options like at the different camps?
Yeah, so that is a really good question. I about halfway through my presentation, I realized I probably should have had a slide that touches on food service. So I will run through it kind of very quickly. Between Snyder, Ross, and PMI, all 3 of them have a dining hall. So you go there at a certain time, you get breakfast, you get lunch, you get dinner. As far as COVID goes, again, it's going to be a similar concept where we're going to be doing shifts. If the size is too big, so we're going to split you all in half, and half the camp is going to eat at one time, and half the camp is going to eat at another time. Same shift that you're going to go to campfires with, or that you're going to go to flag ceremonies with, so on and so forth. But yeah, we're going to split those up. And lunch already is typically more of an open concept. So I don't know, and Kevin, you can touch on how it's been done at Snyder. I know at both of the Weeblos camps, been very, it's generally a cold lunch. You go there, you pick it up, and you take it to wherever you want in camp, and you eat lunch. So we've already kind of solved that issue from just a COVID standpoint. That's not typically a big gathering point for the camp, but as far as breakfast and dinner goes, those are going to be gatherings and they're going to be done in shifts. And then as far as District Day Camp, I want to say that there are no District Day Camps doing food of any sort, but correct me if I'm wrong on that, Sam.
No, you got it.
Okay. And then Kevin, is there anything else or anything from anybody that you wanted to throw in that I got wrong or missed?
Yeah, usually for the breakfast and dinner, for the resident sessions, it's always been a cafeteria styled as of late. And there's 1 week at Snyder where we're planning a lot this year because it's a Boy Scout Merit Badge week, and they plan on doing like bag lunches. And I'm wondering if that's going to overflow into the Cub session as well. Or are we just going to do bag lunches? If not, then it's just a cafeteria styled where we space out the tables, and so we'll be very spread apart.
Okay. Anything else from anybody on food service? All right, good deal.
All right, the next question's a tenting question. What's the policy with tending with youth and their parent or guardian? And is this something that the Webelos camps, specifically at Goshen, see much?
So I will start the answer to that question, and it's a good one also, that it's straight out of the Guide to Safe Scouting. We do get it a good amount. The answer is, it is okay to do so at the Cub Scouts level and not okay at the Scouts VSA level. So for the purposes of almost everything we're talking about tonight or have talked about, the answer is yes, parents can tent with their youth if they desire to. And I'll let the Webelos guys field the question about Webelos camps.
Yeah, I will say more often than not in years past, this doesn't happen. Typically, scouts tent with scouts and adults tent with adults. But I do imagine this year with COVID that will be a much more popular option, just to keep everything as separated as you can on your end, like within your own family, within a cohort.
Yep.
I would say that the same is true for Ross. Generally, folks try to let their scouts have the experience of tenting with other scouts. And in the case where your pack has a odd number of scouts, then it would come down to either having a scout stay with a parent or playing like musical tenting halfway through the week, where you would be able to give all of the scouts an opportunity to tent with another scout, and also like somebody would swap out with sleeping with their parent, basically.
Gotcha.
Can people bring their own tents to camp, and how does that work?
Yeah, the simple answer to that one is yes. We are certainly available to allow you to do that, and I would go as far as say encourage you to do that if you're someone that is uncomfortable with you or your youth sharing a tent with someone, because we are simply not going to be able to commit to everyone having their own tent, but we encourage you to bring your own tent if you'd like that.
And can a scout tent by themselves?
It is generally discouraged. And I think it's absolutely, I think it's fine if you want to at the Scouts VSA level. In fact, we actually ended up making sure that we covered everything in the Guide to Safe Scouting, and there's nothing that explicitly states that it's not allowed. So we are okay, and it has generally been discouraged in the past, but it is allowed. For the purposes of this summer too, it is definitely allowed. I will say a lot of people have expressed concern over just simply their Cub Scout aged youth being too young to have his or her own tent, which I can certainly see the concern there. So we are not going to force that on anyone, but it is overall allowed.
All right, moving topics. Can you speak to the refund policy, specifically if the worst should happen and camp is canceled again this year?
Yes, yeah, I have got to hope that that is not going to happen. I've got to think we've got a very, very small chance of it happening, but it very well could. If we have to cancel camp, every single person that is signed up for camp will get a 100% refund. No questions asked whatsoever. If, however, I do want to caveat that and say that if we end up hosting camp and you, for whatever reason, need to back out, we have extended our refund policy to basically the end of the summer. That's July 31. So it used to be we had a deadline in mid-June. For the purposes of this summer, because we know that there is a lot of uncertainty out there. If you, for whatever reason, you or your youth has to back out of camp anytime before July 31, we are going to give you that 85% refund, 85% of your money back minus the 15% processing fee. So 85% refund if you cancel for any reason before July 31st, 100% refund if we cancel. But I'm really hoping, praying, and thinking that we will not have to do that based on Governor Northam's latest announcement.
All right, next question. There was concern about staff interaction with multiple cohorts in the age of COVID. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that was a concern that came up as well at one of the meetings I was at last night. There is a way to safely do that, and I think that other camps figured that out kind of before we did. So there were camps out there like the Summit that operated with the model in place, but it does require the staff to keep their distance, does require the staff to stay masked up. And it just requires a new way of us utilizing our staff. So those things are going to be in place, and there's going to be a lot more sanitization between groups and that kind of stuff. So I encourage you, and I shouldn't say again, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we do have our COVID protocols online at go-to-goshen.org and go-to-snyder.org. So I would certainly encourage you to take a look at those, and that kind of shows you what we're doing. Like all of the things that we do, they are not risk-free, but as far as staff interacting, with one staff member with X amount of people in one cohort, I think we've done a fairly good job of keeping that as safe as we possibly can.
And related to that, on the vein of COVID, are there any quarantine or travel restrictions prior to camp attendance?
Yes, so there are, and I don't want to get too far into it because we haven't completely revised everything yet. But there is going to be from the governor's office. I'm sure that that people read it at one point. There is going to be a mandatory either negative COVID test or 14-day symptom-free screening that's required before you arrive at summer camp. Again, I'm gonna touch on that in some emails moving forward as we continue to evaluate everything that's going on and make sure we're in compliance. But yes, that's going to be the recommendation, or the requirement is going to be that you either come to camp with a negative COVID test or that you quarantine and are symptom-free for 14 days beforehand.
All right, and if there are questions that we didn't get to and people have questions down the line or further questions, where should they send those questions?
Those questions can go to any of the various people here. Actually, we have all of their contact information listed online. So if they're more specific to the camp that you're going to, I would encourage you to contact that individual director or one of the people here. And if they're just overall kind of questions about our camping program and how they work, or even just feedback on things that we can do better, that would be me, phil.barbash@scouting.org. Anything final there, Sarah? Sarah, you're muted.
We do have further questions, but we are starting to run low on time. What do you think?
We have time for a couple more.
All right. It looks like Richard was just answering this one, but can you speak more about dietary concerns, menus, preparing your own food if necessary, things of that nature?
I'm gonna deflect that one to the individual guys here.
All right, so I know for camps Ross and PMI at least, the meal schedule and what we'll be eating during each day of the week is published on the Go to Goshen website. And just as well, Ross and PMI should have microwaves available for anyone to use at basically any time during the day.
We've also published our menu. We're still, like, it's not published for this summer because we're actually in the process of nailing down our head chef, because the one we've had may or may not come back. And so after we get a menu, then it has to go to a nutritionist to be approved. Once it's approved, that's our menu for the summer. It does get posted as well. And we do highly request, if you have any food allergies, there's a form to submit ahead of time so we can prepare for that and know you're coming. And we have a microwave that's pseudo public available. Like, it's not just out in the dining hall for anyone to walk up at any time. It is back in the kitchen. And if there's a need for it, we do allow people to go and microwave something.
Kevin, is that dietary needs or special dietary needs form, is that going to be available on the website?
It should be, and it's typically in the, we've had it in the parent leader guide, or maybe it's the registration. Mrs. Messenger knows, she's the one that sends that one out.
Okay, I'll make sure, if that's not there yet, I'll make sure we get it there. As far as, you know, kind of just a question for all three of you, as far as handling those needs and handling those allergies. I know, Kevin, you said there's a form you fill out for you guys at the Weeblos camps. How does that generally work? Is there someone specific they should contact? Is there someone they talk to once they get there? How does that work?
So if they want to reach out to me or Michael ahead of time, that should be fine. And then also, if they don't get the opportunity to reach out to us ahead of time, if they just bring that food with them that they need, we have storage space available in our kitchen area.
Excellent. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, is we almost always have space, special space to store food if somebody wants to bring food.
That's a good point. I didn't cover that. We have space too.
Yep.
We had a bunch of follow-up questions to the previous question about coronavirus. When will the updated coronavirus information be published for Goshen and Snyder so that people can get more details on that once we have those other details?
Within the next week. And it'll be, and let me caveat that too, it'll be published within the next week, possibly even tomorrow. You know, it's, again, we're limited on staffing, but we could publish it even as soon as tomorrow. But it is something where you're going to want to be constantly referencing those websites, because that is going to be changing, right? It's going to be changing on a fairly regular basis. And I don't want to say this is the last change, because I think that there will be 5 or 6 more changes leading up to summer camp. And I know that a lot of you are as aggravated and as tired of all of this as I am. But that's the reality of us operating our summer camps in the new world, if you will. So I'm going to do my best to send out emails to everyone registered whenever, you know, we update that page or put, you know, I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that no stone goes uncovered or covered for that matter. But it is something that you're going to want to continuously check back on those web pages for.
And on that note, specifically masks and social distancing.
Yep, that's part of our protocols. Masks are going to be part of camp this year. So that is social distancing also going to be part of camp this year. So again, I would definitely encourage everyone to go through those protocols online. Go to Snyder.org, go to Goshen.org. Those protocols are listed there.
All right, and we'll do the last question. Is there going to be any opportunity for adult leader training this summer?
I am going to defer to Sarah, actually, but I believe the answer is yes, right?
I think they're still determining it for the Goshen ones.
Okay.
They've been meeting and it's still in determination.
Yeah, under review at the moment. I think the only place we've ever done that is Goshen, and it's being reviewed at the moment. But generally, what we hope to be able to do is offer basic Scoutmaster training and IOLS at Goshen for the Rising Weeblos leaders. Okay, that looks like that's pretty much it. I'm sorry if for some reason your question didn't get answered tonight. We're just about at our time limit, but I do want to encourage you again, online, go to Goshen.org, go to Snyder.org, go to daycamp.org, reach out to the various points of contact for the camp that you are thinking about attending or registered to attend with your pack, or me if you just have general feedback or overall questions about our camping program. But again, this recording will be posted online for future use if you want to share it with your parents. And I wish you all the best of evenings, and I thank you all for being a part of our camping programs as we relaunch all of them this coming year. So thank you all so much and have a lovely evening.